This far-left activist guy wrote a book called Alt America in which the stars have little clan heads on them. So Twitter has suspended his account, and it doesn't seem like Twitter actually wants to bring this guy back. It's kind of funny, because for the longest time, people like me, other, moderate centrists, conservatives, and like moderate liberal types, have been repeatedly saying, actually, no, I should stop there. There are even many progressives and people like Glenn Greenwald, Mike Tracy, etc., who have said, if you push for censorship, you will be censored. I can't tell you, I can only, how many times have you heard me say this? How many videos have I made about censorship backfiring on the left? Well, here we have this man, David Nywert, shocked, I tell you, that Twitter actually suspended his account. OG, from Daily Kos, which is considered, kind of fringy, but I want to read what this guy has to say. Twitter is showing that it won't even try to distinguish hate speech from the efforts to oppose it. Yes, it's quite literally always been that way. This is not new. It's been happening nonstop. And no matter how many times I wiggle my arms in the air and tell you what's going to happen, none of these people seem to learn. And they're still shocked that giant multinational billion-dollar corporations don't care about you. You notice that Oreo has a little pride flag? You think Oreo cares? You notice all these companies changing their little icons to pride symbols? They don't care. They're just pandering to what they view is socially acceptable. Everyone else is doing it, we better do it too. You think Twitter is going to come down? No. Let me tell you something. Advertisers, that is what Twitter, Google, whoever. The big companies want the ads. Do you think Pepsi wants their tweet to appear alongside your silly book? No. Period. And there you go. Now, I certainly think the right to free expression on these massive platforms, which have a massive control over political and public discourse, is more important than their right to generating ad revenue. And we have a serious conundrum here. They can't operate without ad revenue. They are a private business, but they're causing too much damage to the public discourse when they get rid of someone's book like this. I don't know what his book is about. I don't care what his book is about. He has a right to make the book. He has a right to show the art, and he shouldn't be suspended from Twitter because he presents his idea, period. Unfortunately, these people don't seem to understand how business works. They think that when Target changes their icon to a pride flag, that Target actually cares. And I don't want to stress, obviously many of these people see through the corporate BS that they're being pandered to. But when you stand up and say, Twitter, I demand action, get all your little journalisty friends in your weird Twitterati leftist sphere to start screaming and ranting and raving about how Twitter won't take action, advertisers see this, ad revenue goes down, and Twitter goes, I don't know, man, just ban anybody who posts anything about this. Because even though you're fighting against it, do you think the advertiser cares? Dr. Pepper doesn't care that you're the good guy. Dr. Pepper just doesn't want their ad to appear next to your silly book. So here's what we're going to do. We'll stop the rant. Let me just read what this guy has to say, and we'll go through it. Because, man, how many times have you heard me rant about this kind of stuff? Before we get started, go to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address. But, of course, like, comment, share, subscribe. All of that YouTube engagement says, hey, YouTube, this video is really good. So David Nywert writes, having reached day 4 and counting of my suspension from Twitter for posting the image of clan-hooded stars from the cover of my book Alt America, I can at least report one development. Yes, my life has gotten materially better without it. Now, I can agree with that. Twitter is terrible. I don't really post content anymore. I have brought this up before. I used to actually link stories. Like, mostly what I would do is I'd find interesting stories and I would tweet like, hey, here's a story, check this out. I don't really do that anymore. Sometimes, rarely. I never tweet my own content. I just stopped. And now I just block people. I've never been a big fan of blocking, but I'm just, at this point, Twitter is just so goddamn awful. I'm like, just don't even care. Literally don't care anymore. I'm just going to tweet what I feel like tweeting, and then I ignore literally anybody who tweets at me. Just don't care. Well, let's, so Twitter is a gross hellscape. Let's read on. It's actually my friend Luke from We Are Change said that we were talking about it the other day, and he said Twitter's become basically the new bum fights. And I started laughing. I was like, that's actually a really good point. If you're not familiar, bum fights was this guy who would offer like a candy bar to starving bums to make them fight each other, film it, and sell it. And it's a joke. It's meant to be like, hyperbolic, facetious, whatever. But he's got a point. Twitter works because it's like people like watching the mob just tear itself apart. It's just people attacking each other. But let's read on. He said, it's true that I very much missed the stream of news that my feed provided, one I had tried to tailor to my particular needs as a journalist covering the radical right. I certainly miss the instant communication I have had with my colleagues. None of that is easy to replace. Now, I believe this man, David Nywert, referred to Quillette as far right. So I think he did. I could be wrong. But I think that's where the guy's mind is. And Quillette is such tepid, like, centrist, intellectual, dark webby. No, not far right at all. But anyway. But the low-level stress. Let's do that. But the low-level stress of being on Twitter, dealing with adversarial conversations, contending with the ugliness that erupts whenever trolls come rolling around, is one of those things like regular driving during rush hour that you most appreciate when you stop doing it. Yeah. Look, I've said this before, but my notifications are perma-locked at 99 plus. Like the little bell icon says 99 plus. I never click it. You tweet at me, not going to see it. Period. And Twitter likes to send me notifications randomly because, like, I don't even understand why someone will tweet at me and it's like Twitter notifies me. Like, I don't care. Like, dude, it's not that I don't want to see the messages from people who are, like, trying to actually contact me. It's just like, why is Twitter randomly choosing which out of the 5,000 tweets in the past hour I got they're going to show me on my phone? So I don't want to turn off notifications because I get DMs and my DMs are private, and so that actually is useful for me as a tool of communication. But I just swipe. It'll be like, I look at my phone, it'll have like 50 plus notifications, swipe, gone, don't care, not going to read it. And I got to tell you, man, there's a happy medium between just outright deleting Twitter, which I was really close to doing. I've deleted most of my tweets because I'm sick of the platform. But there's a happy medium between that and just like not engaging anymore. So I thought about it. I'm like, well, I got a lot of followers. People want to see what I have to say. So I'm just going to never interact for the most part. And I'm just going to tweet what I feel like tweeting when I feel like tweeting it. And then ignore everybody and their silly nonsense. Some people agree with me. It's not all bad, but you know what? I'm done. David says, that said, for many obvious reasons, I am working to end the suspension. But I am adamant about not removing an image that isn't hateful, but is pure political commentary. But it's a private platform. They can do whatever they want. And I'm fighting for it because the reductio ad absurdum of Twitter's reasoning for the suspension would leave not just me, but any reporter who works to monitor and expose the activities of far-right extremists exposed to the constant threat of being banned simply for doing our mainstream jobs as journalists. Oh, you finally figured it out. How many times have journalists been suspended? Quite a few, actually. How many activists have been suspended for trying to prove that, some vandalism or violence or something was coming from the far right? Quite a lot, actually. I've made several videos about this. When will you silly humans learn that your desire to censor certain images will censor you? Partially Simpsons joke right there. He says, I did hear back from Twitter. This is the statement I was given by a company spokesperson. We don't allow hateful symbols in avatars or header images in order to protect users from unintentionally being exposed to abusive imagery that can be upsetting. We know that some people may use these symbols to confront a hateful ideology, but that's not always obvious at first glance. In this case, additional context in the account profile clarifies the intent, but that isn't always visible in the product. So, for example, someone viewing the header on mobile wouldn't have the extra context and would only see the hateful image. They don't care, quite literally, are telling you context is irrelevant. Please, David, and everyone who wants to fight the far right, understand this. They will come for you first. I'm just shouting at brick walls, though. It's like just shouting at a wall, and the wall's like, but you're a bigot. That's all. Someone spray painted on a brick wall, you're a bigot. And no matter how many times you try and say to them, they're going to censor you. That's the only thing you see. Look at this book. This book could be pro far right. How is anyone supposed to know it's critical or trying to expose them? It quite literally could be pro propaganda for them. So do you think context matters? I do. And I actually, outside of context, this shouldn't be banned. Twitter is a platform where people engage in political conversations. Twitter don't care. Twitter wants ad dollars. Advertisers don't want to be next to your silly book. The problem with this rationale are twofold. First, it accepts at face value that the image in my profile is hateful. It is, and treats context as meaningless. Oh, this is hilarious. I seem to recall many people referring to Count Dankula as a bigot and saying context didn't matter. Here we are. We've come full circle. Congratulations on finally realizing that the push for authoritarianism that you, and there's actually a controversy involving Trump and the First Amendment right now, but I'll get to that later, maybe for another video, that when you say, I want Big Daddy to censor my opponents, he goes, you know what, you're both annoying me, SWAT, and gets rid of both of you. You know what Twitter wants? Twitter wants people to talk about Friends. Twitter wants people to talk about the latest, the season finale of Game of Thrones. Twitter wants you to talk about Chernobyl. Twitter doesn't want you to post your book, which shows a bunch of Klan hoods, because that is bad for their bottom line. Congratulations. Your activism will be silenced, and I assure you, the actual far right will take off the hoods, put them in their storage locker, and put on some other type of hat, and they'll change the meaning of whatever they need to say. They'll change the word, and they'll change their symbols, and they'll hide it all with dog whistles. Now, of course, I understand the left sees dog whistles everywhere, but I gotta say, there's a bit of catharsis in reading an article like this, where it's like, me, you, everybody who's been watching my videos, we've been sitting here saying like, oh no, look what they're doing. These people have lost their minds. And now we're sitting back kind of like smoking a cigar like, yep, who could have seen that coming? So, I don't know, whatever. Let's see how he concludes this so I don't have to ramble for another 20 minutes about the same thing I talk about every other week. He says, I will admit there's a lot about Twitter I miss. I especially miss its didactic qualities resulting from the 280 character limit, because it's been fascinating to see how readily people can absorb information when it's delivered in bite-sized chunks. It's actually a really bad thing in my opinion. Excuse me. And not being able to connect with my fellow journalists is, frankly, something of a professional debacle. So I will continue to discuss this with folks at Twitter and report back to you on how it's going. Hopefully at some point my account will be restored. In the meantime, did I mention how nice and productive life is when you're off Twitter? Well, here, David, I completely agree with you on that one. I have been spending less time on Twitter. Admittedly, all day, every day I'm reading news, so Twitter is there. But, look, this is just another individual who doesn't understand they're like first in the chopping block, okay? When you want to expose someone, you need to have proof. Your proof is hateful. You will be banned. And the people you're trying to ban will put on a nice suit and say, I don't know what you're talking about. And then you'll never be able to prove it. Let me give you one more anecdote before I go, because I've told the story before. I was in the UK, and I was arguing with someone about a particular individual who is considered to be a racist, and I said that they on YouTube had used some slurs. This individual said, that's not true, you're lying. And I said, what? No, I'm not. Like, this person on YouTube made these slurs. Like, what are you talking about? And they said, BS. I've never seen that. Prove it. And I said, okay. I pulled up my phone, searched on Google, so-and-so says X, couldn't find anything. It was really weird because, the week prior, 2 weeks prior in the US, I had seen the story. Activists were sharing it saying, aha, we've caught this guy. So I'm here in the UK, and I'm not saying this is the exact reason why I couldn't find it. I don't know why I couldn't find it. But I'll tell you this. On the Google search page, there was nothing. At the bottom, it said, we have removed certain things for being offensive, yada, yada, yada. And I thought to myself, again, I can't prove that the article in question was removed. I couldn't find it. But when I saw that message, I said, well, there you go. They are cleansing the worst of the worst. They are hiding. Listen, when someone on the far left says something extremely, violent or calls for milkshaking, that's not, it should be bannable, but for some reason they don't ban it. We see that, and we say, you're nuts. Then when you get someone on the fringe far right, or whatever you want to call it, saying some extremist nonsense, Twitter bans it. We don't want that on our platform, and they clean it up. So as I've described it before, the right is being made to look prim and proper, and the left is being made to look like psychopaths. Censorship is backfiring on the left, and they are shocked when it happens to them, because you know what? They're so entrenched in their insane tribalism that when someone here's really annoying. I've been on the left my whole life. I am still moderate center left. I'm actively Andrew Yang. I love that dude. That dude's great. He's not perfect, but he's a really good dude, and I'm rooting for him, and I'm looking forward to the debates. They don't care. They don't care that, someone who is a lifelong, I was a far left anarchist when I was younger, going to these protests and everything, wearing, black t-shirts, black jeans, skating, hanging out with other punks. And they don't care what my perspective is. They don't care that I'm right. All they know is the tribe said X, and you do what the tribe says. But now that they're being slammed in the face every single day by it, they're starting to wake up. And I've been standing here the whole time like, guys, and they've been yelling at me, telling me off, insulting me. So you know what? I will still defend your speech. I will still stand by this man and say your book should absolutely be allowed on Twitter. Twitter should reinstate your profile immediately. No questions asked. We know what your intent was. We know what the context is. You are allowed to your opinion, and your opinion is important for public discourse. I want everyone to see your book. I want them to see your perspective. In fact, I would recommend people buy the book and read it. It's important to know what people you disagree with think. Knowledge is power. If you can better understand the perspective of David Neiwert, perhaps we can actually come to an understanding to solve problems in this country. But what's happening is people are being pushed aside. They're being divided. Censorship doesn't work. And people are not being exposed to new ideas. You don't have to agree with them, by no means, but I do recommend you try and, research and understand those you do disagree with. Perhaps many of you do agree with him, and you do like his book. Well, then you should stand in agreement with me that we should make sure Twitter doesn't have the arbitrary power to silence dissidents and researchers and journalists and activists, and that all of this is important for public discourse. It's a complicated problem because, as we've seen from the University of Missouri study, Twitter amplifies extremes. When David tweets this, it's more likely to get shared and sent into people's faces than someone talking about moderate policy and social cohesion. So I don't know what the solution is. I do feel like it's content like this that is divisive and makes things dangerous. But at the same time, people are, you can't regulate human interest. If humans want this and that's what they do, I don't know what to tell you, man. Twitter doesn't have the right to engineer society in the direction it thinks is healthy. That's a nightmarish dystopia where a few megacorporations are telling us what we're allowed to say and think. Isn't that a nightmare? I can't believe I grew up watching these movies like V for Vendetta, hearing stories of 1984, Animal Farm, etc. All of these dystopian future novels about how megacorporations or totalitarian governments are going to restrict thought, and we must fight against it. The heroes were the resistance, fighting the authoritarian machine, the megacorporations, the government, whatever. And here we have today the left cheering on my private business. I feel like I'm living in some kind of fantasy nonsense world, but you know what? Hey, I'll say this. Final thought. If this is a wake-up call for someone like David, and he's willing to stand behind free expression, I welcome him with open arms, a handshake, and a welcome to the fight. Let's make sure your speech is protected, as well as everyone else's. You may not like their speech, but two things are important. One, that the worst of the worst are exposed when they say what they think and we can see what they're saying. And two, that you are able to expose them with your thoughts and opinions too. I don't care if you're left, right, top down, whatever religion. The point is, let people speak their minds so we know what they truly think and we know their intentions. And if they try and hide it, let people like David highlight information they think will expose them. Otherwise, we're living in a strange NPC, gray jumpsuit, shaved head world where the megacorporation is sending us for re-education to tell us what we should and shouldn't think. What a nightmare. God damn. Rant over. Stick around. More segments to come. Next one at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you then.